Good morning to those of you on YouTube and Zoom. We'll begin our daily devotional in just a few moments. Good morning, fellow pilgrims, and welcome to our daily devotional from Pilgrim Congregational Church. I'm Patrick Horn, and we are going to start in just a moment. We have a slightly different system now that Zoom requires that I admit people at the beginning. So I'm just going to go ahead and start all of the platforms and then allow people to get set, and we'll start our devotional in just a minute or less. Okay, so we are in the book of Philippians this week, Philippians chapter 4, which is the last chapter of the book of Philippians. And I want us to focus on verses 1 through 5 this morning. So we're reading Philippians 1 through 5, and I'll be reading from the New Revised Standard Version. Therefore, my brothers and sisters, whom I love and long for, my joy and crown, stand firm in the Lord in this way, my beloved. I urge you, Euodia, and I urge Syntyche to be of the same mind in the Lord. Yes, and I ask you also, my loyal companion, help these women, for they have struggled beside me in the work of the gospel, together with Clement and the rest of my co-workers, whose names are in the book of life. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say rejoice. Let your gentleness be known to everyone. The Lord is near. Okay, well, here in Philippians chapter 4, Paul gets to what some scholars think might have been one of the motivations for writing the letter, and that is that he heard that there were some tensions between two women in the church, Euodia and Syntyche. But he's very gentle with them. And it's clear, too, that he praises them for their work and the fact that he had worked with both of them before. And he actually offers to us, I believe, a way to address differences and arguments in the church. And that is, he tells them both to have the same mind of Christ, which, of course, is a reference back to chapter 2, where he emphasizes the importance of having the same mind in Christ. And this has, as usual for Paul, this has practical implications for how people relate to one another. So Paul is not a theologian, and he's not just a theologian. He's not just an ethicist working on practical issues. He wants to hold the two together, and he does this in a very specific situation having to do with two women in the church who are apparently in a disagreement, though we don't know what the disagreement is about. And isn't that typically the case? We often forget what we were even arguing about, which should tell us something about the nature of these differences. So he reminds them of what he's just said in chapter 2 about having the same mind of Christ. And I think that this is such a good model for us to use when we have differences in the church, when we have disagreements, sometimes difficult issues that we have to address together as a church. And the encouragement to have the mind of Christ, to be humble, to, let's see, I'm having a little bit of trouble with Facebook. Sorry about that. Let's see. Let me see if I can pick it back up. My apologies for the disruption. I don't know what happened. We were cut off, probably an internet issue. So those of you who are live again, but I don't know if I can reconnect. Well, that's frustrating. Anyway, as I was saying, the message from Paul is to have the same mind of Christ, which includes being humble and submitting to one another. And of course, this is an extremely difficult thing to do, to submit to one another. And yet, this is what I believe Paul is encouraging when he says to have the same mind as Christ, and to be, he specifically says, to help these women for these, to be of the same mind in the Lord. It means to be like Christ again, to have this humility, to be willing to submit to one another. And so Paul has a good model for us to follow. But then Paul also emphasizes in verses 4 and 5 that our direction is not just toward one another. That is, our relations are not just toward one another, but to the whole world. And he says, let your gentleness be known to everyone. The Lord is near. So the message is not simply one of how we treat one another within the church, but how we treat one another all over, wherever we come in contact with others. They should be able to see what it means to have the mind of Christ. And he emphasizes the importance of gentleness. And of course, later he's going to emphasize more characteristics and attributes. Okay, a very good reminder about how we are to relate to one another and to the world, to those around us. Let's close with this word of prayer. O Lord, may we not imagine, because the world is old and worn, that all things shall continue as they are, and we can comfort our hearts and take our ease. We cannot tell at what moment hidden fires may flame forth and consume the habitations we've built for our souls. May we not be found wanting at the testing time. All we've labored for prove like stubble to the flame, the foundations we've chosen only sinking sand. Though the days drift dreaming by, may we not conclude they count for nothing. Help us to remember that the book of life is being written, the account is being rendered, the harvest is ripening, the sickle is thrust and the axe is at the root of the tree, the judge is at the gate. May we be counted worthy to stand before the Son of Man and to abide his coming, who is like a refiner's fire. We see the long content of the peoples breaking down. We hear voices that challenge all that humans have counted final, fixed, and sure. The foundations of things are shaken. People's hearts are failing them for fear. Enable us to lift up our heads because our redemption draws nigh, to trim our lamps, and at the midnight cry, go forth to meet the bridegroom. Amen. Thank you for joining us this morning from Pilgrim Congregational Church. I'm Patrick Horn, and I apologize for the Facebook interruption. If you want to see the entire recording of the devotional, you can go to the YouTube channel to see it. Thank you and have a very good day. Goodbye.